Hello everyone, Stephanie here with a check-in, an update, and a conversation about cramp bark, the Ukraine, and healing the underbelly of your feminine power. What you hear playing in the background is a Ukrainian song called There's a Guelder-Rose on the Hill. And Guelder-Rose is another name for cramp bark. Viburnum opulus, which is in the Adoxaceae family. It's native to Europe, North Africa, and Central Asia. It's a very symbolic and medicinal plant in both Ukrainian and Russian culture, as well as in Native American culture and any indigenous plant-using culture in the regions that cramp bark has grown in, the Guelder-Rose, Viburnum opulus. And so, the reason that I bring this to you today is because, as many of you may have noticed, I've been quite silent this year, and that is unusual for me, as I love to chat and I love to share information and I love to be useful to others and engage. And from the conversations that I've been having with many people in my life, it's obvious that people are struggling worldwide, including, especially now, with what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. And there are atrocities and human rights violations occurring daily in this world. And it's my belief that it's time that it stops. And that's why I'm here today with my voice, bringing to you my spirit and my opinion and my heart and soul from little old Morgan, Vermont. So thank you for your time and your attention as you listen to my video. So I'm under construction. My businesses are under construction. And it seems to be that the entire world is under reconstruction at this time. And my hope and my prayer for the world, part of it, and for Ukraine and Russia, is that this war ends and that these human rights violations end, and that this current experience is taken by the world as an opportunity to create more peace, more joy, more love, more abundance in this world, to honor human rights globally, and to educate people and feed people and take care of people's basic human rights globally, because I believe that we have the ability to do that. And enough is enough, right? And I'm not an expert on human rights. I'm not an expert on Russia or the Ukraine. I don't know if I'm an expert on anything, right? But I do know that I love the world and that I want to see it happy. I don't want to see people being killed and displaced and unnecessary war and destruction and stress and all of these things that are happening in the world that we have the ability to transform. We have the power to transform. And I know what it feels like to struggle with mental, emotional, and physical health. And I know that millions and millions, billions of other people do as well. And I'm also learning that, my voice matters too, and that it's up to me to be willing to show up and share it. However controversial what I have to say and how I do things at this time may be. Which is, again, why I mentioned that I'm under construction. My websites, Sacred Earth Essentials, Vermont Herb Shop, and another new one coming to you soon. It's a great mystery wrapped in an enigma and a lot of wildflowers getting ready for its debut. And so Sacred Earth Essentials is changing its structure slightly, where we will be focusing on growing fruits, vegetables, and herbs, as well as flowers. We'll be focusing on regenerative soil practices, organic gardening, and soil health. We will also be coupling that with sharing the good news in the world and sharing about things that are happening environmentally and how the planet is becoming more conscious in many different ways, through many different people, many different groups, many different elements and belief systems and practices. And I feel so thankful and excited to be a part of this and this world at this time. Despite what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia. And I strongly believe that this will end sooner than later, with favor in the Ukraine's side, because really that's what represents human rights in my belief at this time. Because to my knowledge, there is no good reason for Putin to do what he did. And then there are even people working alongside of him that don't fully agree with what he's doing. And I'm going to share my opinion on this subject, although it may be controversial. And I appreciate any of you who have listened this far and who are going to continue to listen. My prayer is always for peace and for love on this planet for all beings. And I am learning through my own individual practices and experiences, as well as helping other people through their journey, that we need to have healthy boundaries, and that it's okay to stand up for ourselves, and it's okay and necessary and actually quite compassionate and healthy to protect oneself and one's loved ones. That it is in the name of love and liberty and freedom and justice for all to protect human rights. And that's not even, there's other layers that I could go with that, but I'm just going to leave it at that for that portion right now. And I would like to talk about cramp bark more, because that was one of the main topics for this talk. And the reason being is that cramp bark, Guelder-Rose, Verbena opulus, represents the Ukraine, and it also represents Russia. And I believe, and many other plant people believe, that we can connect with and collaborate with the plants and the elementals to help make the world a better place, to help bring more equity, more cohesion, more intelligence, more health, more just a better life to all. When we look at the plant world and we look at the diversity and the synergy and the cooperation that happens in the plant kingdom, queendom, and we can just take that and we can apply that and incorporate that with our practices as humans, and learn from that symbiosis, and learn that we on this planet here are all interconnected, and that there is enough love to go around, and that's power, that love is power, and that frightens people and energies that use things other than love, like fear, to control and maintain power. And we're entering into a season, an era of a world that is ruled by love. And I'm really thankful and excited to be a part of that. And so cramp bark is, if you look, there was a statue, I hope it's still there, I don't know, in the capital of the Ukraine, of one of their goddesses, and something that represents their folk culture in Ukraine, Kailania, when she was one of the goddesses that was there at the birth of the universe. And you see she has these beautiful wings and the beautiful black and gold and checkered traditional styled dress of Ukrainian Slavic folk people there. And my understanding is that the Ukraine and that area is one of it's the root place, the birthplace of shamanism in that region of the world, and that the land there and the practices are very sacred. Because of that, which again, Sacred Earth Essentials, we can find that respect and reverence and that rich spiritual nature, that sacredness in all corners of the globe. Although I guess the globe doesn't technically have corners, does it? So she's holding up this big branch of cramp bark, which when I first saw it, I was like, it looks similar to an elderberry, but it's not. So cramp bark, Guelder-Rose, Vernum opulus, it is used for relieving cramps, both for menstruation and in the musculoskeletal system. It's used in different plant-loving cultures throughout the world for also as a kidney stimulant for vitamin C deficiency. The berries can be made into jam. It can be used to ease cramping during childbirth. It's very potent medicine with, thousands of years of historical use. And in folklore there, it also represents the bitter taste represents the bitterness of separation from loved ones in Russian lore. And the red berries in native culture there represents the land, blood, and family roots. And so when we look at what's happening in this war and many other wars throughout the world, that it's often things that have been issues for thousands of years or issues over resources. In this case, I'm sure there's debate over the sanity of the people making the decisions to cause this devastation, but I have a hard time not believing that part of this is about genocide and another part of this is about taking control of the resources, and there are other aspects to this as well. And I would like for us to look at cramp bark as an opportunity to connect to those cultures, because both Russian and Ukrainian culture revere that plant, and it has a rich history in both countries, both lands, both bloodlines, and both family roots. So I would like to see peace in those countries and throughout the entire world. And also, again, I'm not a human rights expert or lawyer by any means. However, what I do understand about human rights makes me feel that the world not having taken more action sooner is a human rights violation, as well as the fact that what Putin's doing is a human rights violation. And I do not have the ability at this time that I know of to go there and fight. I am not a military veteran, and I do not know the system that is used to make decisions on that level. However, I do have some common sense in combination with my rarer sense. And to me, it seems like common sense to do what we can as a world, globally, any country willing, to stop what's happening. Because it's like with bullying in schools. I've been a school counselor and teacher for a number of years, and I've worked with children. And obviously, if I'm in a school, so some of the things that I see at that level are transferable to adulthood. And if we looked at Putin as a bully in a school system, policy and procedure and common sense and a compassionate human heart would have removed him from bullying or aggressive situations by this point, and would have dealt with him accordingly. And as you can see in schools, when those policies and procedures are not followed adequately, the bullying escalates and it gets worse and worse and worse. And by not doing something, the school or the countries actually allow for things to get worse and allow for more people to die and allow for Putin to just waltz right into the Ukraine and snatch up people's lives and the land that doesn't belong to him. And in many land-loving cultures throughout the world, not just in the Ukraine, people's spirits are directly tied to the land, that they are one with the land and the bloodline that comes from there. And so some people would say that, when a country is attacking a country, for example, in this situation, they're attacking their bloodline, they're attacking their future. And it is a human rights violation. I feel confident in that. And I think that if we were to take a democratic vote, globally speaking, that we would have well over 50% of the population that would agree that this is absolutely ridiculous. I was listening to a training today by Jan von Sant, who I absolutely love and adore. I have one of her books sitting right here we'll talk about in a bit. And I'm not going to quote her verbatim, but she said something along the lines of crazy ass shit. Like, that's pretty much what it's come to at this point. And we can embrace crazy and crazy awesome, and we can look at things through a wild lens and open our minds and our consciousness to what the world and the universe has to offer in beautiful and loving ways. But it's also very important and essential to look at the truth, to examine the things that are happening within us and around us through an honest lens. And what's happening right now in the world is just atrocious, right? And so each one of us can contribute in the ways that we can contribute, and feeling confident and feeling good enough and having love for ourselves and each other so that we can all live together in a consciousness of love and harmony, versus allowing bullies like Putin to basically spit in the eyeball of human rights. And that's like the nicest way to say it. You know, he's basically stabbing the heart of human decency at this point in time, and anything that love would stand for. And so, on the topic of love and the topic of compassion and the war, I'm going to read from you something that Rob Bresney wrote. I also love astrology, and his website is Free Will Astrology. I'm taking some courses right now to enrich what I have to offer all of you in the ways of astrology with Deborah Silverman, astrology and herbalism with various multiple teachers, as well as psychology and counseling and meditation, and raising our vibration collectively to one more in line with love. And so, as much as I speak of love and light and peace, again, I'm going to talk about boundaries. And Rob Bresney titles this section of his newsletter, Idiot Compassion. Pema Chodron says that one of the enemies of compassion is idiot compassion. I know I've been guilty of idiot compassion several times in my life. This is when we avoid conflict and protect our good image by being kind, when we should definitely say no. Compassion doesn't only imply trying to be good. When we find ourselves in an aggressive relationship, we need to set clear boundaries. The kindest thing we can do for everyone concerned is to know when to say enough. Many people use Buddhist ideals to justify self-debasement. In the name of not shutting our heart, we let people walk all over us. It is said that in order not to break our vow of compassion, we have to learn when to stop aggression and draw the line. There are times when the only way to bring down barriers is to set boundaries. Pema Chodron, The Places That Scare You. A Guide to Fearlessness in Difficult Times. On Not Meeting Nazis Halfway, Rebecca Solnit writes, "We get this hopelessly naive version of centrism, of the idea that if we're nicer to the other side, there will be no other side, just one big happy family." This inanity is also applied to the questions of belief and fact and principle, with some muddled cocktail of moral relativism and therapists. Everyone's feelings are valid, applied to everything. But the truth is not some compromise halfway between the truth and the lie, the fact and the delusion, the scientists and the propagandists. And the ethical is not halfway between white supremacists and human rights activists, rapists and feminists, synagogue massacrists and Jews, xenophobes and immigrants, delusional transphobes and trans people. Who the hell wants unity with Nazis until and unless they stop being Nazis? Excerpt from essay on Not Meeting Nazis Halfway by Rebecca Solnit. So these are heavy times and heavy topics, and these are topics that I specialize in through my education and experience, and I need to share my voice and the voice of all of these other people and plants with you all in hopes that it makes a difference. One story that I have to share, I share stories about my dad a lot, who passed away a bit over 20 years ago, because he was my best friend and one of my greatest teachers, for better or for worse. And even though it's been this long, I am still learning to really dive deep into that grief so that I may release it and finally fully move on. In the process, when we're diving deep or digging deep like that, we can still, even all these years later, find gems of wisdom from those experiences, and those stories we can keep with us and share with others because they may resonate. 1/3 of the people will like you, 1/3 won't, and 1/3 won't even notice. So my dad, he was not in the military. He was a tool salesman and an accountant, and we grew up in Pennsylvania. His father was in the military, Melvin Earl, often called Sam, and my mother's father, who raised her, technically her stepfather, Richard Carney, he was a Green Beret and he was in the military. And so I have much respect for people in the military. I hope that was respectful, and veterans. And I almost joined the Navy when I was right out of high school, but to be honest with you all, missed the math score by about 5 points and did not retake it. And one could say that that was because I was not brave enough to join the military. And I am willing to admit that because I'm sitting here in this privileged, safe, warm, cozy home, dressed with food, waiting on my son to come home from school, living a beautiful life. And I would like to enjoy that life. But part of, I think, why the world is suffering with rates of depression and anxiety and health issues well over the 50% mark is because we're disconnected culturally and individually, like from ourselves and from other people, and from healing modalities, and from the earth, and from traditional practices, and from spirit. And that the antidote, the real medicine to that is in connection and in relationships and in propagating peace and love on earth instead of fear and separation. Divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. They've been doing it for years, and now it's time that we, through our traumas, because that separates us, those traumas. So as we all individually heal from our stuff and connect, which is that's actually the root of addiction, is people wanting to connect and needing connection, but because of life circumstances, connecting with drugs and alcohol has become more safe than connecting with another human. And so as we learn to love ourselves through our healing and become human antidepressants, become human anti-anxiety medicine and human, real medicine for people, real walking, breathing, talking, real medicine. And we have the capacity to do that as a planet. So I have much reverence for people in the military because that's not my experience set. So thank you all who have served or who are serving or who will serve. And thank you to all who are defending the Ukrainians. Thank you to all of you Ukrainians for setting an example. Thank you for all the Russians who are putting down their arms, who are not fighting, who are realizing the insanity of this and saying no more. Thank you to all of you. So my dad, who I knew as a really loving guy who would give you the shirt off his back and didn't want to harm a fly. And obviously, as children, always see our parents through a specific lens that may not always be the whole picture. We had a rabid raccoon in our garage one day, and it was eating the animal food. And my dad had guns, although he was not someone who enjoyed hunting, and we just liked to practice shooting in the yard growing up. And he had a couple Civil War guns. went into the gun cabinet and got a gun and told us to go into the house and that he was going to have to shoot the rabid raccoon. Because if you don't shoot a rabid raccoon, it will hurt your family or it will go out into the community and attack other animals, therefore spreading rabies or potentially attacking a neighbor child. And my dad, as much as he did not like hunting or using guns, knew that ethically the right thing to do was to shoot the rabid raccoon. Unless you could have, I guess, captured it in a have a heart trap and maybe taken it to the vet and treated it for rabies. Can we do that with Putin? And in the community. So he shot the raccoon, my dad, with tears in his eyes. And we watched it flip backwards over into what we called the hole in the backyard. This giant, interesting crater. Some of you may know what I'm talking about if you know where I grew up. And he cried. And I only saw him cry a few times in my life. When his mom died, when he shot that raccoon. And, I'm pretty sure that's it. Maybe one other time. But he knew that he needed to protect his family. He needed to protect the community, and that raccoon was sick, right? And the same goes in culture. Like, if somebody is running around the community shooting people, the police get involved and do something about it. The armed forces get involved and do something about it. And if they didn't, that'd be a human rights violation. And so again, not an expert, not on the UN Board of Human Rights, not a lawyer, but I'm a fellow human. And to me, when I look at how we handle situations or are supposed to handle situations like similar to these on smaller scales and work our way up to what we're dealing with right now in the Ukraine, I don't understand. Maybe someone else knows why and can explain it to me. Maybe I haven't watched enough news or done enough research, but I don't understand why the world, I'm not a police officer. If someone was running around Walmart shooting people, I'm not the person you're going to call to come and handle it. I don't have that skill set. But there are people who do have that skill set. And so I'm hoping that peace can happen through peace, through the entire Russian military just putting down their arms. However, as we know from idiot compassion and how things escalate when raccoons or people are ill, what do we do? I think more should be done, and I think that it's a human rights violation that we're not helping. The United States is not helping Ukraine more. And you can say what you want to say. I'm not getting sent. It's not my child who's of age to get sent. But I just believe that we have this world of people who don't agree with what's happening. And we have human rights for a reason. And this is that reason. And Putin is basically shitting on human rights right now and laughing in the face of democracy, laughing in the face of the United States, laughing in the face of any country that claims to be powerful and standing up for human dignity and life. He is, having a heyday over there. So I think it's about time, Biden, please, whoever makes these choices, please step up and do something more than what you've been doing, because it's hurting all of us in various ways, on various levels, to be having this happen in the world at this time. And if we allow this, then that is giving Putin more strength and more power, and setting a poor example for the world, for children, on all levels. You're endangering your families, you're endangering the world by not doing more about this. It's like letting the rabid raccoon go loose and wreaking havoc in the community, letting the shooter at the school or in the community just do what they want and not step in. It's like if someone's shooting people in public and you cancel access to their bank cards. That's, I think they deserve more help than that. And so that's my 2 cents on that matter, backed up with some writings from Pema Children and a little bit of talking about the Guelder-Rose. I have a wonderful poem to read to you about the Guelder-Rose here. I'm going to try to softly wrap this back up with the cramp bark. So even Native American people in the Meskwaki and the Penobscot have used cramp bark historically for limb health, as well as the muscular skeletal issues that I've described before, in addition to the menstruation cramps and pregnancy cramps. And when we look back on human history, war has happened, holocausts have happened, atrocities have happened for thousands of years. And some people may believe that it's not possible that we have world peace, but I do. I believe in the good. I believe in good people. And I believe that we are capable as a species and a planet of raising our consciousness to a place where we can prevent things like what's happening in the Ukraine, where we can take care of children worldwide, where maybe things won't be perfect in my Virgo mindset, but they can definitely be better. And we could definitely all be doing more, myself included, which is why I'm here today, showing myself and sharing my honest as possible opinions with all of you. Cramp bark it's not just a folklore or a hippie medicine. It was also entered into the United States pharmacopoeia in 1894 and remained there till 1916. And it was included in the National Formulary from 1916 to 1960. And it was considered medically to be a sedative and an antispasmodic. So this card here from the Wild Medicine Tarot deck at Tamed Wild, that's what cramp bark looks like. Again, you can look at the vine, the branch that the woman, the Ukrainian goddess, is holding in the capital of Ukraine, symbolizing native land, blood, and family roots. It grows up to 16 feet tall, with 3-lobed, long, broad leaves, white flowers growing at the tops of the stems with an outer ring of larger flowers. The plant produces small red berries. And so some of the historical medicinal uses, true to its name, this herb has been traditionally used to ease abdominal cramps, relax the muscles, uterus, and other internal female parts, making it a popular herb for women during and outside of pregnancy. You can use it in a decoction, in a tea, in a tincture. You can also use it in oil, salves, as well as making a tea, soaking a cloth in that tea, and then, using that cloth on your body or the leaves like a poultice. Ritual and lore. Hailing from the Ukraine, cramp bark was commonly used in rituals created to aid a woman and her specific healing needs. Native Americans also used this herb as a smoking substitute for tobacco. And yesterday was International Women's Day. And so what a more perfect plant to talk about for International Women's Day. And I don't know how much stronger you could, that's a special strength to be able to give birth, to grow a child inside of you and give birth. I may not have the skills and the strength and the type of energy or mindset needed to be a soldier. But I know what kind of strength it takes to be a mother, and I know what kind of strength it takes to give birth to a child naturally with no painkillers and nothing to ease that. So that's a different type of strength. I know the strength of a mother's love, and on International Women's Day, I also want to acknowledge the earth as often having this feminine principle and this feminine body. And when things like this war that's happening, I'm calling it a war, and people are dying unnecessarily it hurts the people, and it hurts the land, and it hurts the collective. And we have the power to stop it, and we have the power to make the world a better place when the power of love overcomes the love of power. Then the world will know peace. And I'm going to sing for you this little song on cramp bark. It's called A Girl Like a Guelder-Rose. Then I have to go get Yoda. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Ian Le Sant, and I may do a different video on that. So I'm not sure if this is the correct tune for this song, but it's the tune that came to mind when I found the song this morning. And I'm not a professional singer, but I can make a joyful sound. So I'm going to share this with you in hopes that it may soften your heart and bring love and solace to anyone listening at this time. A Girl Like a Guelder-Rose from Well Wishing. A girl like a Guelder-Rose, how I would like one of those. She'd take away all my woes. My girl like a Guelder-Rose. Her lips like a poppy red, her hair bright as golden thread, gentle as a breeze that blows. My girl like a Guelder-Rose, so cheerful her soul would be, like birds in a willow tree. Smile bright as the starlight glows. My girl like a Guelder-Rose, so sweetly my girl would sing, voice bright as a bell that rings. How happy I'd be to know a girl like a Guelder-Rose. So, a girl like a Guelder-Rose. Love you all. Thanks for listening this far. I appreciate your time and your attention and your love for the world in all its beauty, in all its fabulousness, in all its diversity, and in all its potential for love and peace and healing for all. Amen. Aho, ashe, so mote it be. However you like to end your prayers, this video was my prayer for us all. Namaste.